Thank you very much. Please be seated. Let me begin by thanking all of you for honoring us with your presence at this first dialogue on illegal mining. We know that the issues of illegal mining are dear to your hearts and to the hearts of every Ghanaian. And that's why we decided that from time to time we'll hold this dialogue. This is not going to be the last. We'll hold this dialogue to update you on the progress that we're making in the fight against illegal mining. Mining in Ghana has been historical. And when the first Portuguese arrived in Elmina, one of the first things we sold to them was gold. And that's why they built the fort in Elmina. Our grandfathers were involved in mining. The problem with the difference between then and now is that they use rudimentary tools to undertake the mining. And so the capacity to create destruction to the environment was very limited. The whole equation changed when the small-scale mining sector started deploying heavy earth-moving equipment. Before, it was only the big-scale mining sector that was involved in using excavators and bulldozers and huge dump trucks. At a point in time, the small-scale mining sector, which is a legal sector of our mining, it was passed in PNDC time to allow, because we realized that the big mining companies were owned by foreign companies, and Ghanaian small-scale companies that had the capacity to mine were prevented from doing so. And so the mining code was revised to add for small-scale miners. And as I said, there's a difference between small-scale mining and artisanal mining. Artisanal mining was what existed before, using pickaxes and shovels and so on and so forth. But when the new licenses for small-scale mining started, and they could afford to bring in excavators and bulldozers and others, it meant that their ability to destroy the environment was expanded. And that is where we currently have our problem. I want to assure you that we are determined to win this fight. And your contributions, your criticisms, your pressure, putting fire under our feet does not have any problem. We don't have any problem with that. You must continue to do your advocacy, to urge us on, to encourage us to win the fight. As I said in the last media encounter, I said that I had no illusions that within 7 months I was going to win the fight against Galamsey. And I said that it wasn't going to be an event, it was going to be a process. Mistakes have been made. In the first effort we made, we go into a forest reserve. We mapped out the forest reserves that had been that had incursions of illegal miners, and we deployed the first wave of our security services. They scored a lot of successes. In a short time, they had cleared some of the major forest reserves that were called no-go areas. Unfortunately, after we cleared the illegal miners from there, the security services withdrew and handed over the forest reserve to the Forestry Commission. And so they put their forest guards there. The forest guards don't have the capacity to defend the reserves against the illegal miners. And so lessons learned were that in the next wave, with the formation of NIMOS, that we must deploy the military on a sustained basis, rather than when we make some wins, we withdraw them. But it comes with a cost, because if you send troops and station them permanently to guard the forest reserves, we must feed them, we must provide them with fuel, we must give them vehicles and all the logistics they need to be able to do that. And so that links up with Franklin's question about budget. We need a substantially bigger budget than we have currently to be able to win this war. Happily, budget hearings have started. The budget for next year is going to be presented to Parliament, and my expectation is that the Minister of Finance will give a much bigger allocation to this fight against Galamsey. We also need enough troops. Our troops are stretched. We have so many chieftaincy disputes all over the country, land disputes. And so you go to Sampa, we have troops there. You go to Gonjaland, Savannah, there are troops there. You go to Boko, there are troops there. You go to Nkwanta, our troops are there. And then our troops are also on the border to protect us from terrorism. And so they are spread thin. If we take another batch of them and go and put them in the forest, it means that we are committing most of our troops to other things other than crime prevention and keeping us safe. And so that's why NIMOS is a combination of the police and the army. So all of them contribute troops. And then we also have national security also contributing and all the other agencies. But happily we have some additional troops coming with the winding down of some of the peacekeeping theaters. And so when they come, as many of them as possible, we'll add them to the force so that we're able to dominate all the anti-Galamsey sites and be able to win the battle. As he said, we have targeted 7 major zones in the regions, and the Army have come up with a proper strategy. NIMOS has come up with a proper strategy for engaging the illegal miners and making sure that we clear them from especially the forest reserves and the water bodies. One of the important successes is the change in the whole issue of excavators. Excavators came in huge quantities, and I remember that at a point under the previous administration, they asked that permits be gotten before excavators are imported. Meanwhile, the law did not say you should get a permit after, but that was what we came to meet, that you bring the excavator, then you go to the Ministry of Transport and ask for a permit. But the law actually says that you must get a permit before you import the excavator. And so now we're enforcing that law. And so you can't bring an excavator in, you can't put it on a ship, and we're telling the shipping agencies, if you bring an excavator for which there's no permit, we shall penalize you, the shipping agency, for carrying that excavator here to Ghana. In the meantime, we came to meet a huge quantity of excavators in the port. And that is what the Lands Minister was explaining to you, that we had to decongest the ports because there was no more space for anything. And so we've moved them to the military space at the Shire Hills and other locations, and we've corralled them there. One of the successes too is the registration of excavators. Even though the law requires excavators to be registered, nobody was registering their excavator. And so if you look at the DVLA records, there was no registration of excavators. And so anybody could bring in an excavator and take it straight into the forest. Today, we are requiring that every excavator must be registered with the owner of the excavator known. And once that is done, like he said, we've started putting trackers on the excavator so that we know exactly where they are going to. It's not only illegal miners who use excavators, contractors working on our roads, quarries and others all use excavators. And so it's impossible to just put a complete ban on excavator, but we must know where that excavator is going. If it's a construction company, they register it in their name. If they have a project and they're using it there, we know that that excavator is being used for construction purposes. And so we now can hold the owners of excavators responsible if we find the excavator in a forest reserve or engaged in illegal mining. And so that's one of the advances that we have made. We've started a geofencing policy where it makes it possible for us to know where every excavator is, so that if the excavator moves after where it was geofenced, then we can go and find out where did this excavator go and what is it doing where it has gone. And so that would help us. With regards to turbidity of the water, as the scientist said, is just about, you can see physically with your eyes, what the turbidity of the water is. The thicker brown it is, the more coffee-like it is, the more polluted it is. The less it is, the less polluted it is. And so, like he said, we are scoring a few successes, especially on the Ankobra. I believe the minister chose the Ankobra to start because it flows through his constituency. And so there are some successes, but like he said, we still have the Pra, we have the Densu, we have the Birim, we have the Ofin and all of them. But that means that we must get more manpower. The Blue Water Guards have started work, and a lot of them are deployed on the Ankobra River. So far, we've recruited 1,000 of them. We pay them an allowance of, if you take away deductions and other taxes, of about 1,500 cedis a month. And so if we have 1,000 of them, and we pay about 1,500 a month, it means for a year, you're talking about roughly 18 million cedis. And that's for 1,000 of them. And so if we scale up, then it means that we need more money to employ more of them. But I endorse it because it gives them an alternative source of income. Because as they are fighting the pollution of our water bodies, they are also earning an income as a kind of alternative livelihood. And so that is something that we'll have to scale up. And so the Minister of Finance in doing the budget must make extra provision. We also have to start reclamation, because it's not enough to just stop them and drive them away and leave the land scarred the way it is. And so there are a few companies that have worked with the United Nations, and they have come up with some trees that help to regenerate the soil and can also take out toxins from the soil. If you've heard about the green Sahelian wall that the United Nations was sponsoring, some of the companies involved there have also come and tried those crops in areas that we want to reclaim. And they say that the tests are positive and they can work with us. But of course, we need to use these bulldozers and things we have recovered to level out the land before these vegetative, organisms are put in the land to be able to reclaim the land. So reclamation is one of the areas that we must look to. Happily, we should be able to get some support from green climate funds and a lot of these green funds to assist us in reclamation. But we must put our resources in first. The menace of illegal mining, and I've been trying to find out about best practice, and I found out that apparently we are not the only ones suffering. The high gold price is pushing a lot of people into gold, especially gold mining. So if you go to Peru, you go to Chile, you go to Zambia, you go to South Africa. South Africa, there are even some old pits that people have gone into, and there's violence, people have died, all kinds of things are happening. So we might not be the only persons, but there are success stories we can learn from. Because if you look at Chile, for instance, they've been able to formalize 90% of their small-scale gold mining. It means 90%, they were in the same situation as us. But today, 90% of their small-scale mining is formalized. And they have control of it, they inspect, they make sure that they're doing the right thing. We can also achieve that. And so even though we're not alone facing that menace, I believe that we can use the best practices of Chile and others to also formalize our small-scale mining sector and make sure that we're able to take control of it. And that is part of what we tried to do when our colleagues died in the helicopter crash. We contacted the big mining companies. Some of them have concessions like 200 miles square. And they're not going to mine all of that concession today or tomorrow. There are some of the places they've explored and found out the gold content is so low that it's not really profitable for them to start mining. But for a small-scale mining company, because of their lower costs, they can mine it effectively, but they must do it responsibly. And so together with the big companies, we said, okay, let's start this cooperative mining, seed part of your concession, so that we can move the small-scale miners from where they are causing distraction onto your concessions, and then you can help us to monitor them and make sure that they are doing the right things. So that was what we were going to launch in Obuasi when the tragic accident happened. The first was AngloGold. AngloGold agreed, and they carved out a part of the concession. I'm happy to know that since then, Newmont have come on board and are going to assist with the cooperative mining, and some of the other bigger companies have agreed that they will carve out part of their concession so that we can move these illegal small-scale miners onto those places. And so we'll continue to do that. We also have the issue of geology and geological exploration. Currently, our mineral prospects have not been explored adequately. Happily, there's new technology generated by AI that allows those with the technology to partner with our geological survey department. And what they do is they shoot seismic from satellites, and they're able to map out exactly where a mineral prospect is. Currently, when our small-scale miners get a concession, they go and dig this place. There's not enough gold there. They leave it. They go and dig there. There's not enough gold. They leave it. They come and dig here. There's not enough gold. They dig here until they find something. By the time they find something and they're mining, they've dug all over the concession. Today, it's possible to precisely map out where the mineral prospect is. And that's part of what Gold Board is trying to do. That is their other responsibility. That is to give Geological Survey money together with their partners to shoot the seismic for Ghana and show where exactly the resources are. And based on that, do PPPs with Ghanaian mining companies that will mine that gold responsibly so that they don't go around just digging everywhere. So that's one of the things that Gold Board is going to introduce. And this fits into their track and trace system, which they are going to launch, because we cannot export gold to the European countries because of LBMA restrictions. And yet, if we introduce a track and trace system, we should not only be able to export to the Asian countries and the Middle East, we should be able to, once the gold has been tracked and it's known to have come from responsible sources, then we can export it into the LBMA countries. And that allows us to get a much higher price, for our gold than we currently have. And so Gold Board has to activate that other aspect. Aside from that, we're looking at best practices for small-scale mining, because small-scale mining is not restricted only to Africa or to Ghana. It is done even in the advanced countries. And so there are small-scale mines in Canada, Australia, even in the United States of America. And that's why when I spoke the other time, I said that we're contacting some of them so that our Small-Scale Miners Association, could be sent to go and see that you can do this in a much better way than we're currently doing. Happily, we've trained a lot of geologists, we've trained a lot of mining experts. University of Mines and Technology has trained so many of our young people who have the technology and the ability to do so. And so the intention is to attach these graduates of UMAT to the district mining organizations, and they would help the district mining organizations to go and inspect the small-scale mining industries and make sure that they're doing the right thing. Normally what you do is, before you start, you must dig what they call a tailings dam to contain any water that you use to wash the gold. And so all the gold that you wash must go into the tailings dam and is contained. And after you wash the gold and you finish mining, you're supposed to cover the pits, and then after that, there are chemicals that you can use to clean and detoxify the water. I'll come to that in a short while. But like I said, it's not an event, it's a process, but we will never give up. It's a long journey, but we'll continue to work on it. I like that somebody raised that, what are we doing to the kingpins? Because most of those 1,400 who have been arrested are young youth who are looking for something to be able to look after themselves. And we'll prosecute them, we'll imprison them. But those who run those operations are the ones that we must be arresting and imprisoning, not these little boys, you know. And so we need to change our strategy. We can arrest the boys and all that. And I think that even if we send them, they should be given a leaner sentence by the judge, a slap on the wrist. But those who must be given, there's no slap on the wrist. What's the least sentence? 15 years. 5 to 15. Yeah, so we'll catch these boys and we'll feed them for 5 years. Look after them for 5 years and discharge them. But like I'm saying, maybe we can look rather for the kingpins and deal with them in a major way so that we are able to get something on this whole thing. With regards to the toxification of the waters, like the EPA was saying, we started some pilots. There are new chemicals that have come that allows you to treat water and take out the toxins and the heavy metals. There are new chemicals that have come. One of them is called dioxin. The people came and we sent them there. They took samples, they tested. We're waiting for them to bring the results back. But there are other ways of dealing with gold, that is processing gold, without using mercury and cyanide. There are different new, for instance, you have what they call vortex concentrators. You put the gravel in there and it's a vortex, it's like a centrifuge. And all the heavy things sink to the bottom. And you're able to take out the water and you see the gold lying at the bottom. And you don't need to use mercury and all that. There's carbon filter, there you can use carbon filters to filter the water in order to be able to take out any toxins that are in there. They call it activated carbon filtration. You have reverse osmosis that is capable of taking out heavy metals and others, you know, from the water. So while we are fighting the menace, I'm also saying that we should uptake technology in order to protect our environment. So yes, let's fight the illegal mining, but at the same time, let's bring in the new technologies that allow us to be able to protect our environment. Now with the elephants in the room, state of emergency. You know, yes, I have the power to do it, but the president acts on the authority, not only on the authority, on the advice of the National Security Council. And as at now, this moment, the National Security Council believes that we can win the fight against Galamsey without a state of emergency. I want to assure you that the day they advise me otherwise, that, boss, now we need a state of emergency, I will not hesitate in declaring a state of emergency. But we do still think that we have the powers to be able to win this fight. And as we deploy more troops and we apply more resources to the fight, I'm sure that gradually we'll begin to see that we're winning the fight. So like I said, this is not going to be a one-stop dialogue. We're going to continue to update you. We need your support. We need your criticism. We need your advocacy. We need your pressure. Continue to put our feet to the fire, because that will encourage us to also continue to work harder. And so I want to personally assure you that as president, I will also continue to put pressure on my lands ministry and all the ministries that are involved in this to make sure that we're able to hand over to our children and our grandchildren